It's time for Recipe of the Day. Happy Friday! We made it, and I have just the recipe to celebrate the start of the weekend. It is Chicago-style beef sandwiches. So, what are these Chicago-style beef sandwiches? It is usually some kind of beef, often sirloin, that is slow roasted and then sliced and piled onto a long bun. I have done a bit of testing on this, and I actually like slow cooking the meat better and using something like a chuck roast, almost like a pot roast kind of thing for the at-home version. I think it's just a much, much better choice. If you're doing something in a restaurant, then it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? And then the other classic part of this sandwich is the giardiniera. Now, if you don't know what I'm saying, it's because it's not spelled the way that it is pronounced. So I'm going to spell it for you really quick. It is Giardiniera. Giardiniera. It's an Italian pickled vegetable mixture that you would have almost like antipasto, or that you could put on a sandwich. And the one in particular that is used on the Chicago style sandwich is actually packed in oil. Now, this is a little bit tricky because the ones sold in my grocery store here in Florida are always packed in vinegar, and they are not the same as what you're going to get on the Chicago style sandwich. I had to order mine from Amazon, and I will put a link to it for you in the show notes so you can get some. Although I will say that it was quite oily, and we actually ended up rinsing ours off a little bit. So I'm not sure if it is my preference over the vinegar one. It is just more the classic thing that goes with this sandwich. Then the last important part is what is called the gravy or the juice for this sandwich. Now, what typically is done when this is being cooked is that the meat is first roasted and then it's sliced and then it's dipped back into the juices that came out of the beef while it was cooking. And then sometimes also served with some of those juices for dipping after. Now, it is a little bit harder to get the amount of juices that you need just from roasting a beef. Like if you're making this for a family of 4, it's a little bit tricky to do that. And so instead, that is why we did it in the slow cooker. We get some really nice juices. You can add some of those to the meat before you pile it into your hoagies, and you can serve some on the side for dipping. So that is what's going on here. We are trying to make a beautiful, luscious, juicy beef sandwich with that pickled vegetable. I put a little cheese on mine, of course, and then there are some green bell peppers on here also. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to make this. Oh wait, before I jump in, I'm just going to say if you don't want to do this in the slow cooker, you can do it in the Instant Pot or in the oven. I'm going to link to my basic shredded beef recipe, which has the instructions for the slow cooker, the oven, and the Instant Pot. So if you are about to make these sandwiches and you're looking at my shredded beef sandwich recipe, know that you can head over to the actual shredded beef recipe to get all those different instructions. Okay, but we're talking about the slow cooker today. So you're taking a 2.5 pound boneless chuck roast and you are rubbing it all over with 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Then to your slow cooker, you are putting 1 large red onion that you've sliced up, a red bell pepper chopped up, 4 cloves of garlic sliced, and 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. Put that into the slow cooker, stir it up, and then you nestle that seasoned roast that you just seasoned up right into those veggies, and then you're going to pour 1/2 cup of beef broth over top. Put the lid on your slow cooker and cook it until it is tender enough to shred. It's going to be about 6 hours on low or 4 hours on high. Then, if you want your green bell peppers to be softened, to be cooked, you're going to put them into the slow cooker. If you want them raw and crunchy, you're just going to slice them and get ready to make your sandwiches. So if you want them cooked, what you're going to do is you're going to slice up a green bell pepper, and then you're going to arrange the slices of pepper over the roast in the slow cooker, put the lid back on, and continue cooking it on high for 15 minutes. The steam is going to soften those peppers up really nice. Then you're going to use some tongs to transfer the green bell peppers off of the roast, and then get the roast out of the slow cooker and use 2 forks to shred up that beef. Now we need to get the veggies and that liquid gold from the slow cooker. So what you're going to do is you're going to get out a large bowl and you're going to put a strainer on top of it. And then you pour everything from the slow cooker through that strainer. You're going to have a strainer full of nice veggies, those sliced red onions that have cooked, the red bell pepper, the diced tomatoes, the garlic that was all cooking in that broth, getting the juices from the meat. Really, really lots of flavor in there. You're going to take that strainer with all those vegetables that you've drained the liquid off of, and you're going to mix that into the shredded beef. Then you have your liquid left in the bowl. Let that sit for a minute and then use a spoon to just skim off any fat from the top. Or, you know what I really like to do for this kind of thing is I have a gravy separator, which is like a big measuring cup that has a spout that goes down to the very bottom. So you pour the liquid into it, let it sit for a couple of minutes. All the fat rises to the top, but since the spout goes all the way to the bottom, when you pour out of the spout, it takes that nice, beautiful broth and leaves the fat behind. So if you have one of those, that is a great thing to use here. If not, I will link to one in the show notes for you so you can see what I mean. Okay, so then once you have the fat off of that liquid and your veggies are mixed into the beef, you can build your sandwiches. Now, you can absolutely just go with a split open hoagie roll, sub bun, French baguette, whatever kind of sub bun length thing you are using. You're splitting that open and you can go straight in and pile in your shredded beef, and then you drain off some of that giardiniera and put that in there, and then your green bell pepper slices, whether you're using the cooked ones or the raw crunchy ones, and you can put some cheese in there if you want, and then just cut them in half and dig in. But I like to toast the buns a little bit and melt the cheese. So what I do is I turn the broiler on, and then I put the hoagie buns in there split open, and I put some cheese on one side, and then those go under the broiler just until they're heated through, a little toasted at the edges, and the cheese is melted. Then I take that pan of buns out, and then I build the sandwich. So the meat goes on, giardiniera, and then the green bell peppers. That is your sandwich. And then you pour some of that gravy, the juice from the bowl that you had where you skimmed off that fat. You put that into some little bowls and serve with that for dipping. So good. I'll put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is May 17th of 2025. Also, if you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast. The easiest way to do that is to go on your phone to cookthestory.com/ROTD, and there you'll see some of the buttons across the top for places that you can subscribe, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or go on your phone to your favorite podcast app and search there for Recipe of the Day. Then you hit subscribe or follow, and then every single day you will get a new episode of Recipe of the Day. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.